Hi and welcome again. Yesterday was unexpected for me. I mean, I wasn't planning yesterday morning when I got up to do a video, but I'd been following that low pressure, storm system for the past week and a half, watching it gradually move closer and closer to the UK. And I posed the question in yesterday's video. Could London go underwater? Well, it's not that what I suggested was meant to be, first of all, hostile to anyone that lived in London. Despite me saying, I would like to see at least Westminster and the banking capital go under, if we could have a miracle, and we could just, control the waters to those certain areas like, Parliament and that, and if we could allow it to just trickle in on Buckingham Palace, that would be more along the lines of what I was talking about. You're looking at a special effects photo, I believe, of a film which may be coming out in the near future, which is based on that actual fact of London flooding. And they've obviously taken it serious because they've built the Thames Barrier recently. Well, say recently, within the last 20 odd years. So that they are expecting a super surge at some point to come through, and they're hoping that the Thames Barrier can control some of the devastation that would be caused. But certainly you could be looking at similar effects as to what you're witnessing in this picture, if such a thing should happen. Now, the reason why I suggested it in the first place is because I've been tracking this storm, which we're going to have a look at in a little bit more detail, and I just want to point out a few things about this storm. It's not the commonest of weather anomalies to take place. These are rare events, and this could quite possibly pose such a thing happening or taking place as what you're looking at right now in London. As London is really only about a metre above sea level, most of the it's built on an estuary, the Thames estuary, and we got and it's crazy because some of the most dearest real estate in the country resides round an area that is at threat at some point in the near future for such things to happen. So let's have a look then at the pressure system that we were talking about, and possibly just have a look at some of the potentials that could deliver such an effect as what we're looking at here. Just before we have a look at the weather system, I just thought I'd include a clear picture of the Thames Barrier so that you can see. It is the River Thames is it is a tidal estuary, as you can see from the tide marks around the lower concrete plinths that the barrier is built upon. You can see part of the barrier there, and this is what has supposedly been erected to defend London on an occasion where they would have a high surge of water move up the estuary. But it would only protect the estuary itself. Certainly the borders of the Thames could breach and therefore go straight round the barrier, and it would render the barrier useless at that point. So let's have a look then at this weather system then that could pose a threat to London. So here we are. You can see this low pressure system that's moving westerly across the North Atlantic, and you can see it is off the east coast of Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland and Scotland at the moment. And just to give you an idea, down here in the left hand column we can see 3.2 metre swells at just the right hand side or the east coast of Scotland. But as we move into that that low pressure system, we can see the waves increasing greatly in height. Now, I showed you yesterday what I classified as possibly high up in the atmosphere a perfect system, or a perfect storm system, where we was having a interconnection of warm air being drew up from the equatorial region, or at least the Mediterranean area, and we was having Arctic air being drawn down in that tricyclic system that we was looking at. And if we go to surface, we can see that this is being blown in by a moderate weather system of around or thereabouts 100 kilometres. But the point is if London was to flood, could it be caused by a surge of water coming down the east coast of the United Kingdom and bottlenecking at the Channel crossing? And what would be how would this happen? Well, I could, if there was more water put into this area of sea here, it would certainly try and push its way down, I believe, especially as we can see it surging over Scotland at the moment and into that area. For the last few days I've been checking, this has been moving gradually westerly, and we can see as it's doing so, it's bringing those high seas with it. Even at that point there, you're at 6.3 metres, and you certainly wouldn't want to be on a small boat in those waters. So, one of the things I was looking at then was perhaps if we had signs then of water currents building up. Now remember, the Thames estuary is around about here, just by the Channel crossing, so we would want to see at least something developing in this region, and that is exactly what's happening. And we can see that there is currents forming, which could be an indication of waters moving into this area. Here, if we just change the waves to currents, so we can have a look at that in a bit more clearer detail. And what you can see is the movement of that low pressure and those high waves moving over Scotland, and we can see that it is pushing it down over the west coast of the United Kingdom, and it is getting stronger at the point we would expect it to. Now, if this water can't freely move through that channel crossing, then it's going to build up, and I believe we're seeing some of those early signs of possibly this happening. And we can see here the currents are increasing. We're at nearly 0.5 metre per second, which is, when you compare it to more calmer places here, which is not even moving relatively at all. But we can see that the water is moving into this vicinity, and it is bottlenecking, and where it's bottlenecking, it is the currents are getting stronger, as we would expect. Now, if there's a build-up here of water and it cannot escape quick enough through the channel crossing, the currents are going to get stronger, and we might see water then begin to move down the Thames estuary. And this could be one of those storms that the Thames Barrier was actually built for. How bad this could get, or whether it could even get to that point where it would be a problem where they'd have to close the barrier, is another matter. But this is something I thought was worth sharing with you guys, and worth following over at least the next few weeks, or at least until that low pressure dissipates. But at the moment, you can see it's covering a vicinity of probably 4,000 square miles or more, and it's a large system, and with it, it's packing a punch. And this, if it did flood the Thames, with the British government being based there, and a lot of other important things such as the banking capital of the world, it could seriously not just affect the British economy, the British governance. It could also start affecting other countries around the world, especially as it is the banking capital. So this is something I think worthy of observation, just as much as some of the other things that we've talked about in previous videos. I'd just like to quickly go over a few things. I'm not going to get out the data today on the new solar cycle. I will just say for now that there is a solar cycle a grand cycle that I've discovered, and you'll probably find it coincidental that it occurs over, lo and behold, 99 years. So more about the grand solar cycle perhaps later in the week. I don't intend to do videos every day like I was doing before. Perhaps you know I might do a couple a week, and it all depends. The reason why the videos stopped really was because of the lack of support and the time that that was required to get some decent information out. And if we can get a little bit of support again financially, then we'll keep up to date with some of these things that are taking place right now. I will just say that there is something taking place over the northern hemisphere of this planet, and I'll just go over those briefly with you, because I don't want to take up your whole day just hearing me rattle on. So let's get into some of those details then. So just briefly then, here's that tricyclic weather anomaly that we was looking at yesterday. We can see there has been further gains in wind speed on the third cyclic anomaly, and we can see that there's still relatively strong winds of 314 kilometers an hour there, and probably likewise there. We can also see, if we switch it to temperature, the variations in temperature with regards to that, and as you can see we're at 10 HPA on there. And just again we can see where this warm air is drawn up, it's a little bit warmer, minus 34, still negative numbers, but they are increasing slightly as they go through this area here. It's going to be cooler at the top there because that's your Arctic weather coming in, and it's going to be warmer down here. And as we go through the chamber where these both mixed, we can see there's a slight increase in negative numbers, so it is getting cooler as it goes through. We can see this is directly over where these two are mixing. This is directly, if we look there, if I just bring the map on, we can see Ireland, and we can see where they mix just above there. So it's right in the vicinity, and could well be what is causing that low pressure at surface level. Now remember, at 10 HPA we're right up in the atmosphere, so we're higher. But what I wanted to talk to you about just briefly is, if I put it to, we'll switch it onto wind, we'll leave it on wind. What we can see, we're looking over the Arctic at the moment. Let me just get that up so you can see that. I've said before, I don't think there's any coincidence with us having over the Arctic Circle, first of all, a rotational axis, a sub-zero climate, like we do in the Arctic and the Antarctic, and we also have a magnetic pole. Now we know there has been significant movement in the magnetic pole since the 19th century, and to the best of my abilities I've been tracking that now for some years, as you know, that have followed me for that long. But like I said, I don't believe that they're there, all three, by coincidence, on the North Pole and on the South Pole. Now, like I said, the North Pole has migrated, but the South Pole has remained very little unchanged. And I believe that when one of them move, and I believe that the main one out of the three, I'm not just talking about the Arctic region being cold or the rotational axis being on the pole, I'm talking about the magnetic pole. When that starts to migrate, I believe the other two follow suit at some point, and this could result eventually in a rotational axis shift. As we've discussed before, there are many different types of shift that can take place on the pole. You can have a magnetic pole shift, you can have a rotational axis shift, and I believe either one of those will take that extreme climate with them. And I believe that is what we're witnessing right now. I believe that it is, as it's migrating, it's taking the weather and the climate along with it first, and I believe that eventually will result in a rotational shift as well going along with it. So what I'm saying is the main one out of the three is the magnetic pole. When the magnetic pole shifts, something happens beneath our feet deep in the core of the earth, and that in turn takes the others with it. I mean, it could be that the magnetic pole moves first, the rotational axis follows, but I believe as Siberia has been experiencing some real severe weathers over the last 10-15 years, I believe they are getting worse in Siberia, and that is certainly the direction at which the pole is migrating towards, and doing so now more at a quicker rate than back in the early 1900s. So, I want to just prove to you guys then my theory on this. Just by taking a look over the Arctic region as we are now, we can see that things are pretty turbulent as we look down over the Arctic Circle, and we can see right out to the equator that this isn't a nice fluid movement as we are seeing when we look at the Antarctic. Now I just want to show you that. So if we can see the equatorial region first, we can see that things from the equatorial region down further south to the Antarctic region are pretty smoothed out with regards to a nice fluid movement. And you can see now what I'm talking about. When you consider what's taking place over the North Pole and then comparing it to what's happening on the South Pole or the Antarctic region as we are looking at now, you can see that things are a lot more volatile over the northern hemisphere of the planet right now. And it concerns me because this is our life support system, this planet. It is in all respects a spaceship that does orbit its sun, and it's a biosphere as well. I mean, you guys know all this anyhow, but when things start to go wrong, could you imagine how you would feel if you was on a spaceship or in a shuttle or on the International Space Station travelling around the sun, and if you lost your oxygen on that space station, that would be it. You wouldn't get any back. And it is exactly the same and taken for granted on Earth. If you lose your oxygen on Earth, you won't be getting it back from anywhere else. There'll be no super tanker that will pull up and pump more back into the Earth. If we lose our atmosphere, it's gone. Now, people will say, well, that can physically never really happen. Well, all I can say is the magnetic North Pole dissipated on Mars, and it's not known whether shortly after that it lost its atmosphere, and right now it is not a habitable planet. Yet there was water on there at some point, and now there's not. It's mainly on its poles in ice only. So this is a serious matter. Our magnetic shield is weakening, the magnetosphere is weakening, the sun's activity is weakening, and the magnetic gauge is dropping. And from the reports that we've looked at before, it should have got to below 1500 gauge, whereby sunspots do not form already. But we'll give them a benefit of the doubt on that report, because it did say slightly before 2015 and slightly after. But we can see when we compare the South or the Antarctic region with the Arctic region over in the north, that there is a vast difference. And it's not just with the upper atmosphere or upper atmospheric weather that's taking place high up in the atmosphere, it is also with the magnetic poles. Now, I put it to you guys, is it because the magnetic pole has started to migrate more noticeably over the northern hemisphere than it has over the southern hemisphere? And I think, I'm probably not too far away from the truth with that. And perhaps some of you guys would agree with me on that. So there we are. I'll try and get some more data with regards to the solar grand cycle over 99-year period, It does follow suit with colder periods at the beginning or around about the 20, when we get into about the first 20 years of the new century, or 100 years, say like 1820, 1920 and 2020, that we do start to see these cooler periods turning up. The 1900 period is not clear cut. There's more research to dig up on what the climate was on a mean average over the year for that period of time, which is something that I'm doing, but as you can imagine, it does require a lot of time to go through that data to bring out some form of trend, because with trends we can predict things that are going to happen. So for now, guys, it's just good to be doing a few videos. I've missed doing these videos, and it was nice to see yesterday in the video that I'd done a few familiar names, and it's nice that you guys have stuck with me over these few years that we've been covering the magnetic pole shift and other weather anomalies. One of the things I'm probably not going to get back into is the politics of all other things. I'll leave that for other people on YouTube. With regards to the economy, I'm pretty sure you've got an idea just as much as I have of what's going on with that. So, and you'll probably be able to source that if you choose to want to know more about it. But for now, guys, I'm going to say what I always do. Link below if you want to support the channel. And as always, guys, have a good day. Bye for now.